Hello everyone, welcome to this face detection intermediate lesson number 2 under the OpenCV tutorial series. In this tutorial, we're going to see how we can do face detection. And the first thing you want to do is come here where it says table of contents, open part 1, and just before part 1, there is this cloning of repository. This is basically just copying all the files that we need for this project. So we just click on the play and it will download all the files that we need. So if you come down to the directory folder, you can see there is this folder called OpenCV tutorial created for us, and under that there is a file section. So this file section has this Haar Cascade file. If I maximize this a little bit, you can see that it's showing Haar Cascade frontal face default XML. This is basically a cascade classifier that we are going to use in order to do our face detection. Coming back to the table of contents, going to part 2 intermediate series, lesson number 2. Now under lesson number 2, here we're going to code our simple face detection application. It's a simple 4 or 5 line code, very easy to follow. So just stay along with me. Now, the first thing you want to do is import OpenCV. So OpenCV can do all the image manipulation for us. I'm going to maximize this a little bit and remove this so that it's easy for you to see. So you have OpenCV. The next thing you want to do is import cv2_imshow from Google so that we can display our images right here in the back. In this browser, you have Google Colab.patches import cv2_imshow. So you have underscore, then you have all the libraries that we need. The next thing you want to do is you want the library for Cascade Classifier, and that's Cascade Classifiers are going to help us in do our face detection. So let's initialize that. And face cascade is a variable that's going to hold the Cascade Classifier for us. We'll call it as cv2.cascade. Okay, face cascade. Now you are a classifier, so OpenCV has this function called Cascade Classifier, and you just need to specify OpenCV. Hey OpenCV, you got the Cascade Classifier for us, but I also need to tell you where my Cascade Classifier is located. So we saw that it was under this file section, under the Haar Cascade frontal face. Now this is a very big name, so you can see it's called Haar Cascade frontal face with a bunch of underscores in between. Very difficult for me to remember, so I will just go ahead and say rename file, and I'll press my Control-C to copy the file name, and I'll close this. Now I do need to specify, okay, I got Cascade Classifier frontal face here. However, we knew that was not just by itself, it was inside this folder called files. So I do need to provide the file path name as well, which is files. So you have specified that, okay, the Cascade Classifier is inside the files section, files, not just file. The files section, and under this Haar Cascade default.xml. Oh, you can do a lot of mistakes here, so just pay attention. So you have files, and then you're specifying this thing. One last thing is you want to specify this as a string, because Cascade Classifier is expecting this as a string. You want to specify under quotation marks, and that's done with the face Cascade Classifier. Okay, so that's done with the Cascade Classifier, and trust me, I think that's the most complex part. Everything else moving forward is very easy. Now, the next step is to read one of the images that we have. Now, under this directory here, under the images folder, there is a couple of images, and this image with the person.jpg is basically a human face, and that's the face that we are going to use to test our face detection today. So we'll call it as image. Okay, image. Now, OpenCV, you have this function called imRead. Please read the image for me. And the image is inside this images folder, and it's called person.jpg. Going back, showing you images, person.jpg. Just specifying that, okay, it's an images.person.jpg file. And once you have specified the image, let's simply display the image. So we know everything is working out perfectly so far. So let's run this, and it's able to display a person's image right here in the browser for us. Now coming back here, the first step you want to do is convert this colorful image into a grayscale image, because this Cascade classifier is designed only and only to run on grayscale images. So you have to convert that into a grayscale image. And how you do grayscale image conversion? Going back to our table of contents, you have changing image color profiles. If you click on that, this section where we learned the conversion of color, this color BGR to gray, this is what we are going to use today in order to convert our BGR image to a grayscale image. So we'll use that same thing. We covered that in a previous lecture. Going back to face detection, let's use our convert color function. So we'll call it as a grayscale image, gray image, and we will use OpenCV's convert color function to help us convert our colorful image to a grayscale image. So you want to specify the image that you are using. You also need to specify the type of conversion you're doing. So since you're doing BGR to gray, you are going to let OpenCV know that it is a color conversion and it's converting from BGR to gray. So this right here is what we are going to use. And now gray is going to be nothing but a grayscale image. So if I change this IMG and instead of that we display this gray, it should be a grayscale image for us. So you can see now, yes, it's a grayscale image displaying for us. So very simple. Now this grayscale image is going to be sent to this face cascade classifier. And this guy has been waiting for us to do our face detection. So we'll say, okay, guy, no more waiting. You're ready to do our face detection. So this face detection is going to be run through this face cascade. And this face cascade is now, since it's a cascade classifier, it has its own functions. It has its own built-in functions. You see, the moment I put the dot, it's giving me a couple of options. Convert, detect multiscale, 2, 3, empty. So these are all built-in functions that the face cascade classifier can perform for us. In our case, we are simply going to be using this detect multiscale, and this multiscale is nothing but a detection function which can do image detection for us. So let me go back, close this back again, and I'll show you a few things. So the moment you go into that function, this function is going to take the size of the image, or sorry, the image file name, whatever image you want, the scale factor, basically you're trying to tell how big your image is compared to the original training images, the number of neighbors that it can have, a couple of other flags, minimum size, maximum size, which are not so much of concern, but the image, the scale factor, and the minimum neighbors are what we are very much interested in. Go back here. Now you are specifying the image, which is the grayscale image. Then now you're specifying the scale factor. So the Haar Cascade classifier was trained on a couple of images, a lot of group of images in the past, but it was those images were of certain size, certain color, certain shape. So those training images were of a different property, and it's very different to what we are using right now. So you're just specifying that, okay, my new image could be of a scale factor of 1.3. Well, it could be anything else. This is just a random number that I chose, and it seems to be working. But if you notice that this number is not working for your own images, just change that a little bit and play around. You'll get the right results. Next thing is you're specifying the number of neighbors. In our case, we don't have any other faces in this image. It's only one face here, but we're specifying, okay, this could have 5 because we're going to be using the same code to do some group detection as well. So it seems to be 5 is working out even for a single image, but we'll see. So we have the faces. Now we use the face cascade classifier to detect all the faces that are available in the grayscale image. And this faces has information about all the faces. So this function is a very important function. This variable has information about all the faces, and let's draw those faces. Now we are going to be using another function, another system that we learned in the past. And this lesson, where we saw lesson number 4 under the basics fold section, drawing shapes and text. So if you come here, we learned how to draw a rectangle, a line, even putting a text. So we'll use one of these functions to do our face detection. Coming back to the directory, table of contents, coming down to the face detection aspect, let's come down here. Now we will use these faces to draw the information about where the face is. So this faces has nothing but the coordinates. So if I print this, print faces, let's comment this, it will have information about the coordinates of where the face is. But these coordinates are nothing but the pixel values of where the bounding box of the face is. So let's come back here. Now we don't need to print this. We will now use these coordinates to draw our bounding rectangle. So we'll say, okay, for x, y, w each. So this information in faces. So what is that I'm doing here? So this x, y, w, h is nothing but the coordinates that are available inside the faces. So the 208 and 73 are nothing but the x and y location of the top left corner of the rectangle. And this 161, 161 is nothing but the width and the height of the rectangle, of the bounding box which houses the face. So coming back here, we'll say, hey, CV2, you have this rectangle function, which we saw in the previous lecture. And this rectangle function is able to take the image, the point 1 and the point 2, which is the top left corner of the rectangle, and the bottom right corner of the rectangle, the color, the thickness, and the line type. Line type is not something we are interested in. We'll go until the path of thickness. So yes, so we have CV2 rectangle, and you are going to be drawing it on the main colorful image, which is the IMG image, instead of the grayscale image. Now you are also going to specify the point 1, which is given by x and y, and you're also going to specify the point 2, which is given by x plus w, y plus each. So you're just going and pointing it out with the bottom right corner of the rectangle. So once you have specified the points, you also need to specify the color. And we'll say, okay, let's use green color. We'll say 0, 255 for green, and 0 for red. Everything else is green, it's 0, except the green color, which is 255. We will also give it a thickness of size 3, pixel level 3, and it should now draw the rectangle on the face for us. So let's run this. Oops, we are still displaying the grayscale image. Instead of the grayscale image, now we can display the IMG image, which should hopefully have the face detection for us. You can see that it's automatically detecting the face of the person, and it's also drawing the green colored rectangle that we wanted in this chapter. So it's a very simple code. You can see it's hardly a few lines. The only thing you're doing is you're doing some cascade classifier. You're initializing the cascade classifier. You're reading an image. You're converting it into a grayscale image. Then you're using the cascade classifier to detect the faces that are available. Normally, if you have multiple faces, it will go through all the faces in the face section and then draw the rectangle on all the faces. But in this case, in this particular image, the person.jpg image that we used, it has only one person in it, and that's the reason you don't need to go through all the faces. But if you had more faces, this function will just loop through all the faces, draw all the rectangles, and then display the output for us. So that's where the face cascade classifier comes in. I also have another image called group.jpg. I'll quickly run this for you. So let me change this group. In fact, let me copy this and oops, let me copy this so I don't mess up your original code in case you're going to be running this. And here I'm going to change it to group.jpg. The group.jpg is now a different image which has a couple of people in it instead of just one person. But let's see how this function operates. This one is going to take a little bit more time just because it has too many faces in it. And you will see that what's the kind of output you're going to get here. I'm going to skip this a little bit. So now we can see that the image has come up here. You can see the amount of images, the amount of people are present here, and the face detection that is running through it. Let me maximize this a little bit so you can see the intricacy of the face detection. This is a very noisy image. It has so many information. There's so much of information here, but it's still able to detect the faces in this image. And this cascade classifier is very lightweight. It used to be run in the old camera phones, the camcorders, the old camera phones, which did not have any much computing power, unlike the phones that you use now. So this cascade classifier was capable of running face detection in those small, low-end profiles. You can see the accuracy, the level of accuracy that's able to detect. Yes, there are some misses, there are some people who are not being detected, and some errors and mistakes here, but to the most part, it is able to give out the right information.